Sweet Child of Mine, November Rain, and Estranged, these have all appeared in countless greatest guitar solo of all time lists, but as a huge Slash and Guns N' Roses fan, I have to say that my favourite solo he's ever played, and one that I feel he doesn't get enough credit for, is in the Use Your Illusion album recording of Knockin' on Heaven's Door. Everything about his note choices and his tone in that solo is just absolute gold. He plays every note with this emotional, delicate touch and restraint. There's no overplaying here, and it serves the mood of that cover perfectly. So much so, in fact, that I have zero desire to hear improvised versions of it. If I'm seeing them live, I want to hear that solo played exactly the way that it is on the record. So, okay Ross, we get it. You really like that solo. Why do I need to keep watching? Well, if I could encapsulate everything I'm about to teach you from analysing this solo over the next few minutes into a skill that all guitar players really wish to master, that would be the art of building a solo. There is something that Slash does throughout this solo that really makes it stick in your head and makes it a memorable solo. Take the opening phrase, for example. That's so simple, but he's doing something there that's intentional, and that is repeating these three notes on the G string: a pre-bend, release, and pull-off. He plays that twice, and he finishes it high the first time and low the second time. Moving on to the next part of the solo. Again, there's nothing crazy happening here, but there is some intentional repetition happening with these notes on the B string. He repeats the alteration between those two notes, and again finishes high the first time and low the second time. Let's keep going. Now he's starting to move up in pitch, and there's a bend that he chooses to repeat on the high E string. And when he's nearing the climax of the solo, he moves up in pitch once more, and he plays this. So he's playing this same bend twice. But pay attention to what's happening between those two bends. He's alternating between these two notes, which he also played in this part of the solo down here an octave lower. So when he gets to this part of the solo, he's reintroducing those two notes, just an octave higher. Then the solo ends with this. So he takes the bend, release, bend that he plays on the B string and applies that using the exact same rhythm to notes on the G string. Now, despite the fact that there is so much repetition in this solo, it doesn't sound repetitive. What do I mean by that? Well, it doesn't sound like he's just run out of ideas and it's just repeating the same licks over and over again, does it? That's because when he does repeat an idea, he never finishes it the same way. There's always a subtle change in the way that he finishes a phrase, and this repetition and development of these small little phrases is what's commonly known as a motif. Motifs can be used to develop and build a guitar solo in various ways, and if you take a listen to some of the greatest guitar solos ever recorded, many of them make use of motifs. Now, the way I break them down in my first online course is into three types. So we have melody-based, rhythm-based, and technique-based motifs. An example of a melody-based motif would be the way that Slash opens his solo with the pre-bend, release, and pull-off sequence that finishes high the first time and low the second time. In this instance, the notes on the G string, that's the motif right there. And the notes that he finishes with each time, that's the development of the motif. And if he finished it the same way both times, it wouldn't sound as developed now, would it? That tiny change of just finishing on a lower note the second time, it's a tiny change, but it makes a big difference. And he does it again in the part that follows. Again there, he's finishing high the first time and low the second time. So I would define a melody-based motif as one that develops by actually changing the notes that you play. A rhythm-based motif, however, would be one that changes the rhythmic value used to play a note or set of notes. And there's a small example of this in Slash's solo here, and it's actually a part of the solo that I just demonstrated as a melody-based motif. I'm talking about this part here. So this is also a rhythm-based motif because the second time that he plays those two notes on the B string, he uses a different rhythm. So the first time it's this. The second time he hangs onto this C note a little bit longer. So if I just clap those two rhythms for you, the first time it's this. Okay? The second time it's this. So if I played the repetition of the motif using the same rhythm as I did for the first time, it would have sounded like this. But of course, that's not what Slash does in the solo. He hangs onto this note for a little bit longer before he lets go and then finishes on this E. Again, that's a tiny change, but it makes a noticeable difference. We've covered melody and rhythm-based motifs. Now we're about to take a look at a technique-based motif. Now, a prime example of this would be the way that Slash ends this solo with this bend, release, bend sequence that he plays first on the B string and then repeats on the G string. So he's essentially repeating the exact same bending technique used to play the notes on the B string. He's repeating that on the G string with the exact same rhythm. If he instead chose to slide in and out of those notes on the G string, if he'd done that, then I would have just considered this to have been a melody-based motif, which it also is, but that's not what he does in the original album recording, is it? He plays a bend, release, bend both times. Now, did Slash consciously think about all of this when he recorded this solo? Probably not. And does it sound like I'm over-analyzing it? Yeah, of course, even I can tell that. But should you pay attention to these small little details when you're listening to some of the best guitar solos ever written? Well, if you're someone that wants to get better at writing memorable guitar solos, then absolutely pay attention to those small little details, those small little repeated passages that you hear in these classic guitar solos, because there's a lot to be learned from doing so. Like I said earlier, go and listen to some of the greatest guitar solos ever recorded, and you'll find that a lot of them repeat and develop motifs to create something that is truly memorable for the listener. Should I make more videos about Slash and or analyzing classic guitar solos? I think that could be fun. That could be something interesting to do for the channel. If you'd like to see more of that, then leave a comment down below to let me know. And I'm not entirely sure if this is going to be the last video of 2021. If it is, then happy holidays and happy new year when it comes. And I will see you in 2022.